In the last video, we ranked the first half of my top 50 roller coasters I've ridden. This is the sequel, the latter 25, the best of the best in the world. Now before we dive into the mess of a list I've created, let's call out some caveats. First and foremost, this is my opinion and my opinion only. If you disagree with my rankings, that's perfectly okay. Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, I have ridden 640 roller coasters as of when this video is being recorded. The majority of these rides, 432 to be exact, are in the United States of America. But I've also ridden coasters in Germany, Poland, Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Switzerland, Mexico, and Canada. Even though the title says top 50 roller coasters in the world, I obviously haven't done everything on my bucket list. However, I'm very proud of my travels thus far, and I'm proud of the coasters I've been fortunate enough to experience over the past few years. So with that being said, let's waste no more time and begin my rankings of the top 25 favorite roller coasters I've ridden. Kicking things off is one of my favorite Rocky Mountain construction conversions, Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. This ride may be short and the quarry wall section may be a little slow, but none of this matters as long as I'm engaged the whole time, and Iron Rattler certainly fits the bill. The first drop, the drop off the quarry wall, and the heaven roll are some of the greatest elements on any ride by RMC. You know what they say, quality is more important than quantity, and I think this coaster is a great example of that. Number 24 on our list is Hyperion Energylandia in Poland. One of the tallest coasters in Europe, Hyperion is a ride that really truly lives up to its intimidating stats. The first half of this ride is an out and back layout combining some incredible airtime, low to the ground hills, and a whippy dive to the ground. The second half is a twister layout hugging close to the ground and ripping through the tracks. Hyperion easily has one of the greatest layouts on any hypercoaster in the world, and its execution was also up to par. Number 23 is one of the most purely enjoyable coasters I've ever experienced, Fly at Phantasialand in Germany. This flying coaster is easily the best I've experienced. It doesn't even come close. It's the only one that features airtime, features launches, and features sustained positive Gs outside of an inversion. Not to mention, the layout is intertwined in one of the greatest themed sections in the world, so I cannot tell what is coming next. But what you can anticipate is a nice long experience that's very smooth and has amazing elements. Number 22 is a Lightning Rod at Dollywood in Tennessee. This ride may seem low to many, but in my defense, I never got to ride this coaster before the launch was slowed down and the ride was converted to iBox track. Nowadays, I feel as if it's a shell of what it once was, but at least it's become increasingly reliable and still packs in one of the most creative layouts out there. Almost all of what you experience on Lightning Rod is tucked away behind a mountain, and that mystery effect makes things all the more interesting. Then, to make your way back to the other side, you have what is still my favorite sequence of airtime I've ever experienced, the quad down. Other than that, no individual element on this ride really blows my mind, but it's still an incredibly fun experience and a worthy standout attraction for this amazing theme park. Number 21 takes us to Lech Coaster at Legendia in Poland. The world's only Vekoma Bermuda Blitz model is one hell of a ride. I firmly believe that Lech Coaster is one of the most intense rides ever created. For what feels like half the ride, your vision will be completely gray. It is absolutely insane. The layout of this coaster flows great and is very smooth, which of course is a great help, but the intensity of Lech Coaster really steals the show in my opinion. That and the various ejector airtime that also took me by surprise. Now at number 20 is a ride that many of you may be surprised to see so high on my list. Millennium Force at Cedar Point became the world's first Giga coaster when it opened in the year 2000, and it still kicks ass to this day. A front row ride on this Intamed behemoth is absolutely one of the most memorable experiences I've had on any coaster. Mostly this is because of the sense of speed, which I truly believe is one of the most underrated aspects of a ride. But Millennium Force also has some intense overbank turns, some pretty good airtime, and a smooth ride experience. What's not to love? Remaining in the same park is a ride 1/3 of the size, Maverick at Cedar Point. This is one of the most deceiving coasters out there, and it's for that reason that it can be credited for ending the coaster wars. While all these parks out there are focusing on building the tallest, fastest, longest, whatever records they could get, Cedar Point decided to open this little thing. But man, Maverick is incredible. This thing stays low to the ground for most of the ride, and it whips you every which way. I love me a relentless roller coaster, and Maverick is one of the rare few that does so with such minimalistic stats. Number 18 on our list is the best coaster in my home state of California, X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain. X2 is by far one of the most unique coasters in the world, and it's for that reason that it absolutely deserves a high spot on this list. Flipping face first towards the ground, backflipping through a camelback, all of these things feel completely unnatural, and it is amazing. I do wish it was a bit smoothened out and that the middle section had a bit more creativity, but overall it's still an epic ride. Plus, Ejinika in Japan literally does those things, so no wonder it's my top bucket list ride in the world. Number 17 is a fan favorite for many, Expedition GeForce at Holiday Park in Germany. The team at Intamed did an absolutely fantastic job of this incredible mega coaster. The combination of intense ejector airtime and fast overbank turns through the trees is something that needs to be experienced firsthand. Also, even after 2 decades of operation, Expedition GeForce is perfectly smooth, which only helps its case. A phenomenal RMC takes the number 16 spot, Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. This ride is a thigh bruiser, and I absolutely love it. Non-stop ejector airtime with the occasional inversion in between between. It's just an absolute powerhouse and it never lets up until the end. What's funny is in 2018 I liked Twisted Timbers a lot, but I wouldn't rank it anywhere close to where I rank it now. But getting on it last year, Twisted Timber showed me who's boss and that shut that ranking down right away. Cracking the top 15 is my favorite roller coaster in Germany, the Schwartz-Cannon at Hansa Park. Whoever came up with the theme and the concept and the 200-foot twisted drop in the darkness and all the other tricks that this ride has to offer is just an absolutely insane psychopath of a person. So much is going on during the ride to the point where it feels like a blur, but it's an incredible blur at that. The concept is a 10 out of 10 and the intensity is also a 10 out of 10. For me, I just wish the end of the ride went a little bit quicker and was a little bit more creative. Other than that, it's an absolute masterpiece and one of the best rides in Europe. A coaster that blew my expectations out of the water is number 14, Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This Intamed Blitz coaster has an incredibly unique layout with a switch track technology that allows for a swing launch section. This swing launch is built on top of an airtime hill which delivers the best backwards airtime I've ever experienced. Then the rest of the layout has a diverse blend of rapid fire transitions, sustained ejector airtime, and hang time filled inversions. There's not one thing I wish Pantheon did better. It's the first ride on this list that I'd consider to be virtually perfect. Number 13 is sort of the mega coaster equivalent to Pantheon, Kingda at Walibi, Belgium. This Intamed coaster hasn't gotten the praise it deserves so far, likely because it was closed for most of the season last year due to flooding. But now that it's up and running and more enthusiasts are starting to get on it, word is getting out about how elite this ride is. Kingda is basically the modern day version of Expedition GeForce with an even more diverse layout and ride experience. Intamed did what they do best on these types of rides by incorporating various moments of airtime, but they also went with some really unique elements that we haven't seen much on their coasters before. Plus, with the overall presentation and theming, Walibi Belgium did not hold back when creating this full package ride experience. My favorite coaster at a Walibi park just one-ups it and takes the number 12 spot, Untamed at Walibi, Holland. This ride is an ejector airtime headache, similar to Twisted Timbers, which is probably the ride I'd compare this most to. The reason Untamed ranks above all of the other small-scale RMCs, however, is because of the fact that it incorporates aspects of the manufacturer's larger rides. Take a look at these lateral airtime hills, kind of like Zadra at Energylandia, or the rapid series of bunny hills within the ride structure like Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. Untamed is a masterpiece of a layout, only standing 120 feet tall and stands for everything Rocky Mountain construction is really known for. Just an incredible coaster and my favorite in the Netherlands. Spots 11 and 10 are going to be highly controversial as most rank these rides a heck of a lot lower than I do, but I have to give justice to these two legendary strata coasters, starting with Kingda at Six Flags Great Adventure. A front row ride on the steel behemoth is probably the most underrated coaster experience in the world. You are being pelted with speeds that will literally try to rip your face off. It's a crazy adrenaline rush, launching that quick and rocketing up the tallest coaster in the world. Sure, it may be short, but this has some of the best 28 seconds of ride I've ever experienced. The same can be said about our first top 10 coaster on my list, Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. The difference here is the lap bar restraint and the theming that adds an extra layer of anticipation. But other than that, these rides are almost identical, and it always blows my mind when people rank Kingda like 30 spots lower than Dragster. I love this ride. I love the feeling of tossing your hands up in the front row. It's genuinely the single best ride experience at Cedar Point if you are in the front. I hope Top Thrill Dragster is able to reopen next season, because if it does, I'll be there to give it some more rides. Number 9 on my list is a ride that's unfortunately been the bearer of bad news lately, and that's El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. It's no secret that this ride has its share of issues and it is incredibly difficult to maintain, but I hope the park realizes that it's worth it. What they have on their hands is one of the most intense and one of the most amazing wooden roller coasters to ever grace the earth. This ride throws you into the stratosphere again and again and again. I only wish the middle section was more intense, as that's the only thing keeping it from being a top 5 or potentially even higher on this list. But it's an absolute world-class ride and one that I always look forward to getting on. Coming in at number 8 is the newest RMC hybrid coaster to open around the world, and that's Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Admittedly, I don't rank this as high as some people, but it still makes my top 10, which means I absolutely love it. My only criticism is that if you ride this thing first thing in the morning before it's warmed up, it's like the most underwhelming thing in the world, which is why it isn't higher. But once it's sped up, and especially at nighttime, this thing flies and tries to knock you out. The sequence of elements here is absolutely fantastic, the pacing is unreal, and I think this is the most intense RMC. However, I have put a lot of thought into whether or not this is my favorite coaster in the state, and I think I've sided with another ride to take the gold medal in Florida. Number 7 on my list is Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. The more I think about this ride, the higher I want to move it. This is one of the most enjoyable coasters I've experienced. It's one that I could ride all day long and never get bored of. It's also one of those rare rides that combine immaculate theming with an incredible diverse layout. I'd even go as far as to say that Velocicoaster does this better than any other ride in the world. If you don't believe in the hype, shove yourself in the front row and prepare to be amazed. Up next, taking spot number 6 on my list, is Fury 325 at Carowinds. Bollinger and Mavillard's crown jewel is easily this ride. Nothing even comes close close. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting it to rank so high given that I had experienced Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland before this and generally knew what to expect. But no, Fury 325 rides unlike any one of their other rides and does things I've never felt before. Standing 325 feet in the air, this is the tallest roller coaster on Earth with a lift hill, and you feel all of that speed hugging low to the ground and perform some magnificent airtime. What surprised me the most were that my favorite airtime moments on Fury 325 were not the traditional camelbacks the ride has to offer. It were actually these little pops you'd get entering and exiting the low to the ground turns. To me, that only amplified the element's greatness, some of the best moments on any ride in the world. Fury 325 is some of the finest execution I've ever seen on any coaster. Now my top 5 is where things become basically impossible to rank. All of these coasters are subject to changing spots with one another in the future because they are so tightly ranked together. But starting things off is Sky Rush at Hershey Park, one of the world's most powerful roller coasters. I know this ride isn't everyone's favorite as its extreme intensity and heavy restraints often scare people away, but sometimes it's okay to be wrong, and just know that I appreciate the near walk-on every time I visit Hershey Park. Sky Rush feels like it was built for coaster enthusiasts because it has some of the most absurd forces possible for a ride like this. Insane airtime, crazy laterals, grail-inducing turns, all with these restraints that may get their fair share of criticism, but without them these forces would not feel as wild as they do, and you know it. So agree to disagree, but I'd consider Sky Rush to be an absolute work of art. Well, this one hurts. Number 4 on my list is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. I find this ride increasingly difficult to rank because it does almost everything I want in a roller coaster. I even think it could be the objective best coaster in the world. I only rank 3 rides higher because when I hit their brake runs, I'm out of breath and completely floored. Steel Vengeance makes me feel that way too, but it's just a little bit different. But let's talk about the positives. I think this ride's 2 halves perfectly complement one another, and I think this coaster has some world-class ejector airtime. The best part is weaving in and out of the structure and not knowing where you're going to go next. That is absolute perfection. But for the time being, at least until I get back on this thing, Steel Vengeance barely misses my top 3. So what could be even higher? Number 3 is Zadra at Energylandia in Poland. This is my favorite ride RMC has ever built. I find that its pacing, its layout, and its sequencing is flawless. Oftentimes, Zadra is closely compared to Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa due to their similar stats and intensities. But Zadra ranks noticeably higher for me as I don't find any element to be wasted or doing something that a previous element had done better than the next. It seems like every maneuver on Zadra serves its place well, and that causes a virtually perfect ride experience. Not to mention the theming, the music, the appearance, and everything else about this ride just gets you so amped up to ride it. My favorite coaster in the United States of America takes the silver medal on this list, and that's Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. If you rank this any lower than your top 10, you're crazy. Unless you stray away from intense rides. That I understand, and I point that out because I firmly believe I-305 is the most intense ride in the world. The graying out and the rapid-fire nature of this coaster is just unparalleled to any other ride on Earth. The entire experience feels like a dream because the ride is traveling so fast and whipping you so dang hard it doesn't feel real. It's one of those rides that I can't put into words, but it's highly deserving of a top 2 spot, and you'll understand what I mean if you get on it. The only ride I rank higher and my personal favorite ride I've ever experienced is Tomorrowland's Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland to Panne in Belgium. Words cannot explain the things you feel while riding this coaster. Ride to Happiness utilizes Mach's extreme spinning coaster technology, but it's nothing like it sounds from an outsider or a GP perspective. This is a genuinely incredible, smooth, re-rideable, comfortable, not sickening ride at all. The point of the technology is to point you in God knows what directions so that you can experience elements in directions you've never imagined before. Some absolutely insane centripetal forces on the launch, the greatest drop in the world, disorienting inversions while spiraling all over the place, and some genuinely absurd ejector airtime that is the best experience going backwards. Pair that in with terrific theming, a beautiful presentation, and best of all, onboard EDM music that syncs up to the ride's craziest elements. Plopsaland and Mach Rides built a truly unprecedented coaster here, and it's one that should be on every roller coaster enthusiast bucket list. But there you have it, my top 50 roller coasters I've experienced. At the time I'm finishing this script, it's 1:30 in the morning on Tuesday, August 30th. I spent so long making sure these rankings were as accurate as could be and making sure the script truly reflected my thoughts on these rides. So if you'd like to support the videos, feel free to give me a like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any future content like this. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.